molecules get across the cell membrane to get into a cell or out of a cell. We're going both directions now, into and out. So let's see what that. Well, I just said that. You know, a major portion of the membrane does is
some of the lights.
Oh, the lights. Thank you. Thank you waving that.
Thank you.
You're awful friendly there. I ain't sure the square box is doing that there. I didn't put it there. It must be behind that punctuation. Anyway, I need you to remember that word selectively permeable or differentially permeable. Even a third word called semi-permeable. It all means the same thing. Some things can pass through and some things cannot pass through, like a screen door. Screen door is selectively permeable as to what it will allow to pass through and what it will not pass through. Well, the membrane is just like that. And the nuclear membrane is the same way. It's just got the same makeup. You know, when I showed you the picture of the cell membrane and the two phospholipid layers, if you ever look at the membrane that surrounds the mitochondrion or the one that surrounds the nucleus, they look the same way. It's the exact same makeup. That structure of a cell membrane is not just for the cell membrane. Any membrane of a cell is made like that, even the ones inside. And of course, on the mitochondrion, there's not just one, there's two of them. And a cell, there's just one double layer. But on mitochondrion, there's two double layers. And that's because we think that mitochondrion, it was a bacteria with its own cell membrane. Then it got inside the cell. So he is surrounded by the cell membrane and then his membrane. That's why mitochondrion appears to have two membranes. Well, no, it does have two membranes. All right. Some materials can just pass right on through. Not air to a screen door. There's no problem at all. And some things, like flies and butterflies and bees, hopefully cannot pass through the screen door. Same thing here. Some things can go through, and some things cannot go through. That's what you mean by excluded. I mean, on a screen door, the flies, you hope, are excluded. Okay? If you're hydrophobic, that means you don't like water. They can go right through the membrane. Because the membrane is not made of water. Those gases you see on the screen, those protein channels don't need to open up those gases. Those gases go right on through the membrane because they are hydrophobic. It's like this. If you're hydrophobic, you hate water, you love fat. If you're hydrophobic, you'll pass through the fat. If you're hydrophilic, you love water, you hate fat. If you hate fat, you don't go through it. So we mentioned the hydrophobic molecules dissolve in the membrane. Once again now, the word phobia in this case is hydro is water. If you dislike water, then you will like that membrane because the membrane is not made of water. And you may dissolve in the membrane on one side and come out inside the cell. But some things are hydrophilic. If you love water like they do, they ain't gonna like that fat. They won't go through either. Glucose is one like that. You won't go through the fat. The channel got to open up and go through the channel. And the phospholipids is what makes it all work. You know, all it is a lipid molecule with a phosphorus attached to it. Phosphorus is how one lipid attaches to the one next to it. Okay? Ions do not move through. Like if you're Na, or if you're potassium, or if you're glucose, if you're amino acid, you don't move through that membrane. You got to go through the door, that protein channel. That's the only way you get in. Is if you open it, that door opens for you, and you go through the door. But you sure ain't going through that membrane because you're not hydrophilic. And those transport protein channels, I just call them protein channels. They're transmembrane, they go all the way through, as you know. Now, the sodium, which can't pass through the membrane, would like to be inside. So if he's outside and the door opens, he's going in by himself. But if he's inside and the door opens, you got to push him out. He don't want to go. He likes it inside. So that's why I said the last thing. They either can use the energy or they don't need it. Depends on where you're at. If you're where you want to be, and then you're made to move to the way you don't want to be, that would require active transport. And the sodium wants to be inside that cell. He does not want to be outside the cell. So, but to make the cell work, he must be outside because the way the thing functions, when he flows into the cell does something. Well, he's already in there, then nothing can happen. He's got to be outside to make it happen. So, they will move into a cell to make something happen, but they've got to be shoved back out so they can do it again. And the active transport, to make him go back where he don't want to go, that requires energy. Going in is passive. He does it by itself. Going out, he's fighting, kicking and screaming. They won't go back out. But they still use those channels either way you look at it. Either they'll come in by itself with no requirement on the energy level, or he's inside there and he's got to be told to leave and he's got to be thrown out. That's how it works. Okay? A large chemical cannot even go through the membrane. They must be manufactured inside the cell. They must be manufactured inside the cell. Now there's one thing that cell can do though. That cell can ease up to something and just surround it. And when it comes together, the thing moves inside the cell. Now, what you're going to find that there's a cell membrane surrounding what you took in. That forms a vacuum.
Was that made from the cell wall of the cell that was engulfing it, or?
It's engulfing it. And when he's still engulfing it, the cell wall that actually was around it is still there. That becomes the cell. That becomes the wall of the vacuum.
You think maybe that's how mitochondria got inside cells?
I know it is. I know that's the guy got inside. The cell captured the mitochondria, I guess made for food, and then realized I'm better off this sucker being alive and give me energy. And so they worked up a relationship apparently, and the mitochondria has a place to live. And in return for that, the mitochondria make the energy that it can use. And the cell gets by also. Both of them are benefited mutually. It ain't only a give. It's a mutual give and take. And if you look at the membrane surrounding the mitochondria, that membrane contains his own DNA. The one outside that contains the DNA of the cell, which makes sense.
So mitochondria might have been their own cell at one point.
That's what we think. We think they were their own bacteria. We think that they were their own bacteria. Because all the organelles, you look at a lysosome, that membrane is the same as the one around that cell. The mitochondria is the only one different. The membrane, the inner membrane of mitochondria was probably his original membrane, while he lived by himself out there. And when he got sucked into the cell and got surrounded, he now has two membranes. He is, and the one around him that came from the cell that took him in. And that's what we said a mitochondria is a double membrane. The only one we have is a mitochondria, is a double membrane structure. All the rest of them are single membranes. And the makeup is just like the cell. And when you have something you take in like this, it just surrounds it. And then when it's inside the cell, that surrounding vacuole membrane is identical to the cell membrane, which makes sense to me. It used to be a cell membrane. So once you took it into the cell then, and it pinched off, and now he's inside there floating around, well, that membrane that surrounds that piece of particle is actually the cell membrane that engulfed the sucker. And that's why we know that we're sure the mitochondrion used to be a cell by himself. And that when the cell took it in to eat, he realized that, I'm better off leaving the sucker alone. Why destroy him? He can give me energy. And the mitochondria now, they are now dependent. They must live there. And the cell must have them live there. What I can't figure out, and I'll tell you before, maybe, when the cell starts to divide, who tells the mitochondria to make more of your cell? Enough for a new cell? I don't know. Because you know, the nucleus controls the activities of his parts. But here's this new cell in there that's actually a foreigner who's living there. How he gets the word to make new mitochondria for the new cell, I don't have a clue. Don't have a clue. I'm sure there must be a chemical signal being sent out. But the first mitochondrion who ever lived there didn't have a signal. He didn't know what it was. And you would think that if I have one living there and that cell divides, well, one new cell would not have one, and one will have one. Well, that didn't come to place because new cells don't have mitochondria. And I'm still baffled on how that thing works. Now, I know things double, but who tells the mitochondria, get ready, we're going to be cut in half, so please make a few of your copies so I can send some to the new cell. I don't know how that works. And no one ever asked me. The ones who are above me, they can't tell me either. And it's just one of the mysteries that I know it happens, but I don't know how. All right. I'll be using fluids and colloids and things, and there's some words you need to take a note of. Even from the old-fashioned definition, a fluid can take the shape of its container. Is that not true? Mm-hmm. Well, fluids can change their shape. And they can change shape as they change containers. You put them in a round container, a sucker's round. And a square, and he becomes square. Solids cannot do that. Solids, they use his own shape, no matter what you put him in. Gases also take the shape of their containers. So, as a matter of fact, in the case of physics, a fluid is not always going to get you wet. A gas is a fluid because it can change shape. So most of the time when I say fluid, you think of water or Coke, something you can slosh and get on you. No. A fluid simply is a substance that can change its shape. Don't mention being wet or not, it can change its shape. So gases and liquids, they're both fluids. Of course, gas can't get you wet though, but it'll change its shape to meet the container it's in, whether it's a round cylinder or a square box or whatever. So, and that's the first thing you realize, that fluids are not wet. Well, some are, of course, but not all of them. So, the gas you breathe right now, that is wet. It'll take the shape of this room. If you make the room round, it'll be round. And so that's why gases and liquids are both fluids. Okay? You ever hear the expression like athletic fluid motion? Mm-hmm. What does that really mean?
Non-stop.
Smooth. Okay? Concentration is a term, and I need to get some volume in red. I see now I didn't do it. any more on that. Let's see what we got. Concentration is a number of particles in a given volume of substance. I don't mean concentrate like lower your head and think about math. I don't mean that. Can you, would it be advisable to breathe pure oxygen? You know why? It's too concentrated. There's too many oxygen particles there. The air around you is about 1/5 oxygen, and that's just what you need. If you get any pure in that, then you're going to have problems surviving. In the Army, we get together and make homemade ice cream. And all of us came by and put like a thimbleful of vanilla extract into it. I didn't know he did it, so I did it. And there was about 7 spoons of vanilla extract in that, and it was filthy. That was too concentrated. There's too much of the vanilla for the amount of ice cream we were making. You ever mess up your dinner by putting too much salt on it?
Mm-hmm.
You know you shouldn't have? Then that's the concentration that you messed up. It's how much salt you have in that area. And most times, I know I sit down, I don't salt anything until I taste it. Now sometimes it's salty enough right from the kitchen. But a lot of folks will not do that, and they end up messing up their meal. Anybody here put sugar in the sugar smack, things like that? That would make it too sweet to me. That to me though, that would be too high a concentration of sugar. Okay? Gradient is, what's a grade? What's a grade? Not like me grading your paper. What's a grade?
It's a scale.
Huh?
A scale.
A scale? A hill?
A scale.
Well, I mean, that's true. But have you seen these zero-turn mowers? The guys just do like that and just flip around? Yeah. There's a gradient they cannot approach. And my father learned the hard way because he went off into it. My father turned it over into our lake. He was, the wheels in front are like the wheels on a grocery cart. They're free floating, right? The ones in back, well, if you're going to turn one direction, one stops and one goes, right? And they say on the instructions, cut up the hill, don't go sideways because like a go-kart, it's going to do this number. The front is going to swing down, right? My father, hard-headed like he was, we have a dam at our lake, and he wanted to cut. And away from the lake, he would go down to the bottom, turn and come back up. Wouldn't go backwards. Then he said he wanted to cut the side by the water. Well, you can't go down the lake, can you? So he eased off there, and next thing you know, he right down the lake. He could not stop it. And they had to get the skidder up there with the cable. The guy got in the water, hooked to it, pulled it back out of the water. It still runs now. But it took a lot of carburetor cleaning and stuff like that. And we just looked at it. Dad, you knew better than that. He said, I wouldn't think. And once that thing turned downhill, right in the water it went. And that's what grade is. It's how steep a slope is. The little train you saw, that I like to do trains, I model trains, and there's a certain grade that those little engines can't pull it up. Now, if you have a long train, you need a slack grade. Now, if you have a short train, you can go pretty steep, right? Because the point you can hit the spinning wheels. And so when I'm making my layouts for my trains, I got to watch the grade. Because if it is too steep, then a long train, those engines, they won't go up, they'll just spin. They're powerful, but they can't pull the train. So you make and the wheelchair ramps, see, the wheelchair ramps have a certain grade. If it gets too steep, you can't go up it. I go backwards. I do better off pushing myself backwards than trying to go forward. Every time you let go, what's going to happen? You go back. So if I back up it, my leg can hold me, and I can back up a real steep grade if I can't go forward a grade in my wheelchair home. Now, this thing also works. If you have a membrane over here that's got holes in it that let things pass back and forth. If I got a ton of stuff over here and not much over here, this is a high grade, low grade. What's it going to do? It's going to move across. It's going to move down the gradient. It's called down the gradient, where you have 10,000 particles over here and 5 over here. If they can pass through that membrane, they're going to. Now, if they can't pass through the membrane, when the door's open, then they'll go through. Because the door stays closed, of course, there's like a dam holding back water. The Oliver Dam, you'll see water run off sometimes because it's better to let water run off than break the dam. But when you have a drought, there's no water flowing off that dam. They're trying to keep the water backed up so the people with docks keep them. But in the case of the dam, the gradient is on the water side. It's trying to bust the dam down, right? And to keep that from happening, when it's raining outside, you often look and see a couple at the very top, a couple gates open and water coming out. Because if it goes around the side of the dam, what's running water do to the ground? It wears it away. And if it were to get too high and run around the dam, it's going to cut a ditch in the ground. The next thing you know, where's your lake at? It's gone. It's gone. In our lake, we have a runoff and we have a dam. And we have a low area so that the water can cut through there. And right now our lake is down. It's starting to come back up. I need to go fishing before I get too much water in, because when the lake's down, the fish are corralled. And I get to catch more of them. And when it comes up, the bugs are caught in the water and the fish are full and they don't want to bite your lures. But right now, it might be too late now, but I should have gone last weekend, to tell you the truth, when the fish were hungry and I could have caught some big ones probably. I'm still going Saturday anyway, caught fish. But the gradient means there's a lot of stuff on one side and not much other side. It's going to try to flow it's going to try to flow downhill. And that's what we're talking about. Pressure can cause a gradient in that. Why do you bleed? Where's there more pressure, in the blood vessel or outside here? Where's there more pressure at?
In the blood vessel.
That's why your blood flow. If there's more pressure outside here, would you ever bleed? They'd be trying to force back in. So the pressure gradient in your blood vessels is always stronger than there is outside the rim. Because that blood comes out. Because the pressure gradient is going to drive it. It's going to drive out by itself. Electrical charge. When you walk on the carpet, and you hit that doorknob and you shock yourself, and sometimes you get mad, and sometimes you just go, "Oh me." As you're walking, where's all the electrons being stored? They're coming off your feet into you. A gradient forms, and if you compare you to the doorknob, who has more electrons? You do. And you ain't got to touch it either. You get close to it, the blue spark will happen. And that's when the gradient comes into play. And the electrons move from you. The lightning is the same way. But lightning has a lot more electrons than you do, though. Lightning, as the air rubs itself together up there, it's like you walk on the carpet, the electrons are transferred, and you'll find that a charge can go from the ground up or down. The lightning flows both ways. Usually it flows from the air to the tallest object around. If you're under a tree when it's raining, the tree is the lightning rod, and that's a bad place to be. And they can take a tree that's, the General Sherman out in the West, that favorite tree, has a lightning rod in that tree. And the lightning rod draws lightning to it. And then the tree is this way from the rod. The lightning flows down the rod and into the ground, and the tree does not get hurt. Your house can be hit by lightning. Trees like pine trees, bad about it. You see, top of pine tree, all that yellow stripe. That's where lightning struck. And some trees can live through it, we discovered. Not tree service. The insurance would take it down for you. But the problem is, if he stands there and dies, then he'll draw pine beetles to it. And they then will infect your healthy trees. And one by one, they turn brown. Now,
What are they attracted
don't get needle cast confused with that, because they would cast needles all the time. That's how you see on the pine straw on the ground. That's a needle cast. So you might see that and think, that tree is dying. And it's not. And we've had folks who say, no, don't cut that thing down yet. Let it, you'll come back and it'll come back to this.
What are the pine beetles attracted to in the?
It is the sap in the pine tree.
Oh.
That's the food that they want. And they'll bore through the pine bark. And as they bore through the pine bark, that's like puncturing your hose pipe. Then the food can't get from the leaves down. And the water can't get up. Well, if you don't water a bush, what happens to it? Well, if the water can't get up to your leaves, then what's going to happen to your vine tree?
Because they eat from the bottom to the top, and they float down to the bottom of the other tree.
Exactly.
Say that again?
They start from the bottom and they eat up.
And they
when
move
they're
up.
done, they jump off, and then they go to the bottom of another tree.
And they start another tree.
Because they can't live that long without food.
The people like, craft, the craftlands, the lumber, they fly around and look down. And they'll see like sometimes a little mass of brown trees. Well, they'll move in there and cut those suckers down because the trees on the ground don't tend to have a problem because they can't climb up them. If they stand there, they're going to ruin the whole forest. And so, whenever I see a dead pine tree that's struck by lightning, I'm going, hey, better get that tree down. If they want to save the other pine trees, it's going to be a lightning rod or bugs. And pine trees, they're not big at all. They can tear a tree up. But anyway, the gradient is nothing more than rolling downhill. And the taller the hill, the faster you'll roll. The more the gradient, the faster the materials flow. All right? Things are always moving, did you know that? I'm up here and I'm on this table right here. And if you could really look into it carefully, you'll find that the electrons are vibrating. I can't feel it. They're too small. But when ice melts, it turns back to water because the molecules are moving faster and faster. And when water turns to gas, they're going so fast they escape. And they look like steam. Will steam burn?
No.
Yeah, it burns. That's how we cook. We cook food that way. We steam it sometimes. What you don't realize though is that I can have a bowl on my stove full of water with the eye turned on. And if I don't watch it, what's going to eventually happen to the water? It's going to be gone, right? Now, your hand right here, you're going to be burned. Hand up here, you're not going to be burned.
But it cools down.
Yeah, but see, the problem is though, at 100 degrees, water becomes a vapor. Up here, at 100 degrees,
No.
so how does it stay up there? Because of the movement of the molecules. Now, if you have especially those old-fashioned tin glasses, real thin tin, like a little bell shape on top, and you have ice inside there, what's going to happen outside that glass? It's going to get soaking wet. You know why, don't you? The air is touching that glass. And the glass is cold, right? And if you're cold, what's going to happen to the molecules in the air that touch that cold glass? They're going to slow down. They're going to become liquid water. They're going to run down the glass and make a mess on your table. So have coasters for it. You can leave water out there and it'll go away by itself. Heat will go faster, of course. But even then, as time, these molecules get fast enough, they just flop into space. And the water level goes down and down. If you have a fish aquarium, you don't put water in it for long, your fish are high and dry. Besides being full of waste products that you guys clean out anyway. But all molecules are in motion. All molecules are in motion.
If it's a cold glass.
And there are collisions like on a pool table.
Cold glass.
And some collisions will send things off into space. And that's how water evaporates away. But I can speed collisions up by heating the water. It'll go even faster. All right?
It would be taking over, right? So what they're gonna do?
When the molecules on one side are moving more than the ones on the other side, then we have a gradient. And they're going to move from an area where there's a lot of them by themselves to an area where there's not much of them. That's a law of physics. That's why water runs downhill. It's being pulled accordingly. When you breathe in oxygen in the air, in your lungs, there's always more oxygen than the blood coming to your lungs, because that blood is coming from your cells, and they suck the oxygen. So there's always a gradient that says this oxygen has always got somewhere to go. It's going to go into your bloodstream. Now, as you remove the oxygen now, the blood coming in compared to the lung, where do you find more carbon dioxide though? The blood coming in or in the lung?
The one in the lung.
It's in the lung, it's going to go into the blood. Can't be in the lung.
It's the blood returning.
There's got to be more in the blood,
Yeah.
so it'll leave the blood.
It's the blood
If there's
returning
more
to the
carbon dioxide in your blood than in your lung, then by the law of diffusion, it's going to leave an area of high concentration, the blood, and go where there's not much of it in your lung. Then you get to breathe it out. And by the same law, the blood coming in is always going to be short on oxygen. And in your lungs, it's always going to be full of oxygen. The same law says high concentration of oxygen in your lungs, low concentration in your blood. And it's going to diffuse across, and no one's going to make it. It's going to happen by itself.
Are you COPD?
But now, if you're home at night and you're freezing cold, and you get under the cover, how long do you stay up where you you can't breathe real good? It gets real stuck.
Like right away.
And the question is, I want to freeze to death, I want to breathe. You're going to take the cover off of it. Both my sons learned to make a little tunnel. You know what I mean? If you over their face, and there'd be a little tunnel, and air could come in, and I'd go like that, close the tunnel. You know what I mean? You probably do it. I do it too. If it's really cold, I get a cover over my head, and I make a little way to get air inside. My head's warm, and I got air coming into my little tunnel. And I think we all do that. No one teaches you. You realize that with the cover on me sealed, I'm warm. But what are you breathing out?
Carbon dioxide.
And what's being used up? Before long, you're going to have under the cover, you're going to have a lot of carbon dioxide. Can you live with carbon dioxide? That's that stuffy feeling we get. So what you're going to keep that cover off, and you're going to be cold unless you make your little tunnel. And you breathe through the tunnel, and it works great. Only because the gradient still does that work. If you fall into a well because you're out, well, you shouldn't be probably.
If you're in a well.
A lot of people, I tell you what, a lot of people look for old home sites and get the flowers that were planted a long time ago. They're bulbs, right? The property we bought had an old home site on it. They had the prettiest little. I don't know what it was. They were put there by whoever. The chimney was there. House is gone. And my father told us, stop, look for the well. Way out here, there's no city water. There's a well somewhere. Where you go traipsing around, looking and just step into it. A lot of times they'll cover it with boards. They thought that was going to, but the board's right. And you step on the board, what happens then? You fall in. So our project was to find the well. And my father said, look in the low point. Don't look on the hilltop for a well. So we found the well. And we pulled back, and we took a rock and loose. Oh, that thing's deep. You fall in there, you're never gonna find it. So then we took a backhoe and we dug out. We still can fill the well up. We dug it up. We dug the well beside the property because that's all right. We saw no, and we went, well, where did you put the dirt at? You look around there, there's no big pile of dirt that came from that well. And I don't know yet where that dirt went to, because that much dirt come out. I expect to see a pile here big as a mountain.
The aliens dirt.
And they must have spread it out, I guess, or maybe over time rain will wash it away. But we went back then and we took metal stakes and we drove them in the ground, and then we had a pole, and we welded like a railing to them and paint it bright yellow. So we like to play paintball. Man, I did for him a leg, and when you're running looking backwards, it'd be a bad thing flying well. I'd rather hit that iron metal. And all the folks who played paintball got over there, they'd hide behind the chimney sometimes. Well, the well's downhill, and most folks run downhill. And if you didn't watch it, we tell them to watch out. Now, play at nighttime especially, because even that iron railing would knock the wind out of it. My luck, I'd flip over and still on the well. But when you find an old home site and you're out browsing, looking for flowers, they're nice there.
That's some money too. Those
Yes,
antique
it is.
flowers.
You find those bulbs that are big, and you got to find them blooming. But when you find that, before you go traipsing off with your head, look at trees, and you walking, you better find that well. There's probably a well there somewhere.
Tell somebody where you're going.
But my brother-in-law said,
I'm in a well.
we could kill someone with that well and they're fine. That's right. I want to be bothering their wells right now. The folks who are missing, whether they fell in by themselves or whether somebody done them in, I don't know. More than one, I bet you. All right, here we go. This is an example of diffusion. Don't know where I got the picture from, but I liked it. It's showing a person putting a drop like a Sudan. Sudan's a red liquid that you're about to discover on Wednesday. You put a drop in there, and very slowly it spreads from where there's a lot of it. It spreads out to where there's not much. And before long, it's even. It's even, and that's diffusion. When you first drop it in there, you see a gradient. Everything's where the red dot is, and the gradient says, "Get away from me," and things spread out across that container. And before long, it's just evenly distributed all through there. That is how diffusion works. And what's happening right here is a high concentration. Out here is a low concentration. And by diffusion, things start to move into low concentration. And next thing you know, there is no place which has a gradient. It's all equally dispersed. If I open perfume up here, I'll smell it first. Haley probably smell it next. It will fill the whole room eventually, right? And before long, it'll stop diffusing out. But when I first open it, I'm going to get a good whiff of it probably. And then you all smell it one by one. And I did that in my skunk center in high school a lot. I like doing that. And once it's like this, there's no longer a gradient because there's no place where you see more of it. If you have more of it, then that's the gradient. All right, number 5, I guess. Oh, 6, here we go. Well, the gradient makes things move, even through a membrane. And it can do it either without energy, or it can shove it through. Okay? Now, if the gradient is on the side where things flow, for example, on a cell membrane, if the sodium is where it wants to be, it's inside, right? There's more inside than outside. So the gradient is inside or outside? It's inside where there's more of. Now, the problem is, though, the sodium likes it there. It'll stay in there crowded up. And if you're going to make it flow uphill, away from its natural occurrence, then you have to shove it out with force. And the gradient, that way you're swimming upstream. If you swim with the current, that's not too hard, is it? And you cover a lot of ground real fast. So if you turn around and swim against the current, you find you go real slow. I mean, folks do canoe. They can go, and my problem one time was this. I put in my canoe, and I flew in with the current, fishing. There's no one down there to get me out. So when I got down, I said, oh, I better turn around and go back. It took me forever to get back. Because I flew down so fast, I covered so much ground, and I was catching fish. It was a good old time. And around 5 o'clock, I'm going, I better get on back. I got back after dark. My cell phone's in the truck, had 4 or 5 messages from the wife. Are you all right? Where you at? I couldn't be back, daylight. I had no flashlight. I blumbered. Luckily, I had 2 legs. But when I went with the current, that'd be passive, right? And when I turned and began, oh man, I can't remember. And I kept going and kept going. The sun went down and it got dark, and I wasn't scared because I was going to spend the night. If I had to, I'd spend the night in the woods. My wife would be up the creek probably. She'd be freaking out. I would just pull over and pull a canoe over me and went to sleep. But I knew that when I got home, I'd be dead. She would have killed me. And from that point on, I took the cell phone with me. These phones they have on the battery, there's a piece of dye. If they get wet, the dye turns to color. And then your warranty's no good. It tells you that don't get wet. So if I were to fall out of a canoe, which happens sometimes, and the thing get wet, at first he's ruined anyway, and I can't change it for a new phone because it probably got wet. I mean, there had been more than one phone dropped in the toilet by mistake. It just fell in there. And you take the back off, and you look at your battery. No, move the battery to inside that a little piece of dye. It will change colors. And if you take your phone in and say, my phone ain't working no more. They'll always take the battery out and look at that piece of dye. And if it's how it's supposed to be, they work with it. If it shows it's been in water, then you got to buy you a new phone. The warranty is void.
You can work with them though, and sometimes it'll start back working. Mine do.
Well, my brother-in-law did that. His got wet one time. He took a hairdryer immediately, he blew crap out of it. And he blew it out, and he blew it in the hot air. His phone's working again.
Mine did too. I put mine in rice.
You put your what?
Mine and rice.
I put mine in rice and blow dry, and that junk didn't work.
Well, the blow dryer, I don't know about the rice, but the blow dryer, the faster you get that sucker dry, the more likely, if I'd fallen in and then the next day I tried it, it might not work then.
I have my phone in a Ziploc bag, and that Ziploc bag in a Ziploc bag, and it still got wet. It still
Where
got,
were you?
They just
Were you in the canoe?
Yeah, it was canoeing.
How long was the phone wet before you tried
I
your,
don't know, because when I got back to my truck, I picked it up, and it was just full of water. So,
Oh, that's why this
those
is so.
Ziploc bags are the best thing to use.
because once water gets in it, they just stay in the bag.
But you did rice too?
I did everything.
It didn't mess the phone up? And your phone works then? It did not work.
Well, I mean, I had to get another one, but after that, I messed my phone up again, and I put it in the rice, and it worked.
So the first time I did was, well, in the woods, I would have had no hair dryer,
But yeah, the rice works. Depends
I didn't
on
know
what
that.
your
I
phone-
was thinking the rice might get in there and mess the phone up just cause it get cruddy or something. But anyway, I remember now. But I know I didn't think about the hair, I just thought it would mess the circuitry up, period, be done with it. Apparently, if you blow it real hard and dry,
To the point, it's like,
it'll get it back. So.
I read in Popular Mechanics you take those packets that say silica do not eat,
yeah.
and you put them
Like they
in.
put in binocular cases.
Yeah.
Remove liquid.
It'll take all the liquid out of your phone.
I didn't know that. But I knew the hair dryer worked because I knew that worked. I didn't know what it
Put it
worked.
in dry.
Something good to put it back in mind.
The battery is what?
Okay.
The whole phone.
Passive transport does not need any help.
Okay.
It's like you riding your bicycle coasting down a hill. It does it by itself. And if you're on your bicycle riding down the hill, you're going down the grade. You do it now. If you start to pedal up the next hill, then you're going up the grade. You got to put some work into it. So passive transport, whenever things move without using energy, they're going downhill. And that, of course, is diffusion. You ever sit in water and feel the water creep up your britches? That's diffusion. Most of them are bad about that seat, the bucket seat. And you try it, like in the rain, you try to dry it out. I try to just knock it out. The moment I sit down, I go, oh crap, there's water down. It just diffuses right through my britches. All right. So passive transport requires that you move down the gradient like you're coasting down a hill. You don't need to push the gas pedal in. It works the same way. That's diffusion. I can go up a hill, but I got to pedal, you know. You got to put some effort into it. But you can do it. You can do it. Diffusion is always a passive transport. There's no diffusion that requires energy. The nature of the beast, it always happens by itself. Water flows downhill. Open up the perfume and it fills the room. It just does it by itself. That's diffusion. And the things they have on there for A and B, you know, the cell has no control over it because it happens by itself. It's pretty slow. It can't go very far. Your ears full of cartilage, right? And your nose has cartilage. Cartilage has no blood vessels. They feed by diffusion. That's why you don't have really big ears like you think you have sometimes. Because the cartilage can't get real big because it feeds by diffusion. If I took a thing of water and a paper towel and I stuck it into it, will it climb the whole towel? Or just a ways and stop? Just a ways and stop. Now, if this thing were living cells, how much of them would get in the water? Just the bottom portion. So how much would die? The most of it would die. That means it's going to be a small structure. Cartilage feeds by diffusion. They're always small because the blood can't diffuse very far. I'm gonna work up a thing for lab that I've done it in college and stuff. It's pretty cool. You know, the leaves out here are going to start changing, right? They're going to turn to yellows and reds and whatever. That yellow's always there. You know that? It's always there. The red, it ain't changing colors. It's losing the green. If you have tons of green and a pound of red, what you going to see? The tons of green or a pound of red? Now, as the days get shorter, like they're doing, chlorophyll is not usable. And so the plant gets rid of it. Autumn comes and the days get shorter and the leaves start to take on their autumn colors. They're not turning yellow. They've been yellow the whole time. You couldn't see through all the green. They're losing the green. And as you lose the green, there's splotches here and there. The ginkgo tree, Ginkgo biloba is the one that is an old lineage. And they said that if dinosaurs came back and walked the earth today, the only plant they'd recognize from their time were the ginkgo trees. These pines are brand new trees. The oaks are brand new trees. The ferns are old. He would see a fern and go, well, I remember him when I was a kid. But these pine trees, he wouldn't know what a pine tree was because pine trees came along much later in the time of the earth. But the ginkgo tree, you know, most leaves have a shape like that, right? Comes to the point. Ginkgo is backwards. Here's the point, and the top of the leaf is like the bottom. It's the weirdest thing. And they turn the brightest, almost blinding yellow. There's one on Hilton. I always watch for it. And the way the tree grows, the limbs come out in whirls. It's the most. And if you ever saw one, you would never mistake it again. Pine tree limbs are here and there and here and there. And these things come out in perfect whirls. They always come out opposite each other. And I might give you the address. Anybody look at it. It's not turning. I keep watching. But the ginkgo comes from the male and female. So the male ginkgo tree, that's the one you plant. But the female ginkgo tree produces fruit that smells like rotten meat. And when you go to a nursery to buy one, unless you intend to breed them, you don't want the female. Because when she sets her flowers and gets her pollen from the male, flowers always become your fruit. And the fruit falls off the ground and rots, it's supposed to. And the seeds inside the fruit will eat the fruit itself, like eat apple. Well, that's the food for the seed. But as the thing rots, it's the most awful smell you can imagine. My tea olives smell so nice, and my roses, and I don't want no female ginkgo in my house. But someone got to have them because they got to make of the entire lineage. That's the only one we have. And he's doing well. They're not endangered. But when you go to a nursery and buy them, most folks, when you say, I want to buy a ginkgo, they'll sell you the male automatic. They want you, because you come back mad. That thing stinks. Come and get it. So they won't fool it. But if you got to tell them, my hunting land up there, where I don't go very often, I'd put one up there though. And I wouldn't worry about it. And, but the ginkgo, but right now, what I'm going to try to do before they get too good, you can take a leaf and take like coffee filter paper and take your coin and roll across it back and forth. When you get done, there's a green stripe on the filter paper. And you take the filter paper and you dip it in either acetone that ladies use to take off hair polish, or alcohol. And as the alcohol moves up the paper through that little green line, it will carry with it the colors inside the leaf. And because these pigments are different weights, they'll go so far in stock, some go a little higher in stock. You see lines of red and lines of yellow and lines of green. And as it moves up the filter paper, just the fact that the pigment is heavy, that's as far as it's going to go. But the alcohol keeps going because it's evaporating. And that's it's called.
Let's do that.
I forgot what it's called. But I was at home and I'm thinking, I want to design me in the lab, because the book is nice, but sometimes the lab, they don't have the lab I want. Like when we do tomorrow, I'm not using all that paper crap. I want to use my test tubes and do it the way we've been doing it. The lab book says take your filter paper, draw your circles on it, put in your samples, put in your Sudan, put it in water, heat the thing up, put it in the Sudan, wear your gloves. It's much easier simply take the material, put it in a test tube, and drop in the Sudan. And the Sudan itself is fat soluble. It's not water soluble. It's going to soak up the fat and then float to the top. It's going to be red. And the more red you have, the more fat is soaked up. You want to see color, you want to see colors, but it's a pretty red color. And that it'll test milk because the red against white, right? But someone's going to bring in ketchup, and I ain't sure that's going to work. Red against red. I don't know yet to be tried. I'm curious. So I'm using my test tubes, but on these labs we do, there are all kinds of ways you can do it. I mean, I'm not going to use the book method, because I think I can do a lot less trouble than the book. And but I'm still going to work out the thing with the leaves, because a magnolia leaf should do real well. And I'm going to go out and steal some ginkgo leaves and do those and see how far the yellow climbs up. It'll be like a yellow line where all the pigments stop. Right now they're green. If I wait too long, when they turn yellow, there'll be no green line because the chlorophyll is broken down. It takes light to make chlorophyll stay around. It's going to get shorter and shorter. Your days get shorter and shorter as wintertime comes, right? The leaves are going to fall off the trees because it's drier in wintertime, summertime. They want to lose the water. So the tree stands there dormant, and he looks like he's dead, but he's not. And then spring comes, days get a little longer. You see buds start to appear. And they're green because the longer days facilitate the production of chlorophyll. And they'll be green all summer, but if you can remove the green, that yellow is there all the time. Or the red is there, like a red maple, pretty red. It's red when it's green, but there's so much green you can't see it. So they don't really turn colors like painting it. The color's been there the whole time. And as long as the green is there in its numbers, you just can't see the red color that's in that leaf. But once the green goes away, the red can show itself. And red maple is a pretty tree. The gum trees turn a yellowish orange. The gum tree would be too bad. I got to decide on what kind of. You go into a nursery, they tell you a lot of times don't pull the leaves off. Because from a leaf, you can grow a tree. So I can go in there and save myself some money and take some leaf samples, go home and plant them in the greenhouse. The next thing you know, where it hits the ground, the shoot comes up, roots go down. That's going to take a long time, but I can buy them that way. So they have signs that says, don't pinch off the leaves. It ain't because you killed the tree. I want you to buy something. And your azaleas, if I see like my grandmama did, if you have a nice azalea, take your brick and put the stem on the ground under the brick and leave it there. It will take root. Cut around it, dig it up, plant it, and the azalea comes up. You can do it over and over again.
You mean like the leaves of it?
Nah. When the stem, just push the stem to the ground, the whole stem.
Oh, okay.
And make it stay in contact with the ground. And brick, grandma uses brick. Because she has some real pretty red azaleas, and I want her for my house. And she goes, well, go out there and brick it. I'm like, brick it? You brick it down. What you talking about, grandma? Now, I'm a biologist, right? Yeah. She did one idea. She said, come here, boy. And she got in there, and she got down, and she took a brick, and she goes, push that leaf down. So I pushed the whole stem. No, the whole stem. I said, yeah, push the stem on the ground and take the brick, and took 2 bricks lower down and try to come back up. So it's come back about a month. And I took the brick off, it was stuck to the ground. She goes, there's the roots. Cut around it, leave a few leaves on it, because leaves make the food, right? I mean, leave it outside. He said, now dig it up and go and plant it. I still got that later. It worked.
I'll do it to my house. I'll do it.
Well, I cut it away from her bush. After it stuck to the ground, I cut it loose from her bush. And I dig the thing up. And of course, it's laying sideways. But as time passes, it turns right on up. And it becomes so. Sometimes you'll find an azalea which is pretty, you can't buy one like that. You go, where'd you buy that? I don't know. And they saw mine, I didn't buy mine, and I had folks that, it's pretty color. And I said, watch this. Come back in a month. And I did that. And you can't do it a whole lot. But where that thing is on the ground, that stem will send down roots. And when it does, you can move the brick down. And you can make your whole flower bed. Don't get away, just do that. Next thing you know, you had one big bush, you had many bushes, all about bricking them down. I never knew that existed. I didn't learn that in college. I don't know who told grandma that. She had
Is that only azaleas, or is that only azaleas, or can you do?
I guess other things too. I've never tried anything but azaleas. I guess it worked for anything. I can bend down there and stick. But I do know that you can take leaves off.
Oh,
but it takes longer for a leaf. That thing. I came back, I saw grandma, but I didn't think about it. But in a month's time, I'm back out there, and I cut it from her tree. It's still down there. I just took the shovel and went around it and dug it up and took it home. And I dug a hole and put it in it and watered it. I did put some Job's tree spikes around it. That's the slow release fertilizer. It worked beautifully. I couldn't believe it. I said, no way these old folks are smart. They know this stuff, and they didn't go to college for it.
That's how you do those wandering dews too. You just
Same
cut
way?
them off and put them in the dirt, and then they.
I would think that a lot of plants
Yeah, you
have
just
that
cut them
ability,
off.
and I just never thought about it before. Who would think of doing that?
And then they just grow all around.
All right. Now, how fast something diffuses depends on a number of factors. How fast it diffuses depends on a number of things. Of course, temperature. Hotter temperatures, things diffuse faster. Because if you have higher temperatures, you got more molecular movement. That makes things move faster. If this room were like in a freezer and open that perfume up, it'd take a long time to fill the room up. But this thing, it's like a sauna, and it's hot, it'd be full like that. How big the molecule? Now, obviously, the smaller the molecule, the faster they move, right? That makes sense, doesn't it? I mean, small car, zip around, and I've seen these little scooters around town, and my big Harley can't go where they go. But they don't sound cool either. But I gotta admit, though, that, I don't think I can ride my 2 legs in front of me, though. I'm so used to straddling something like a horse. The guys ride like this, I don't know. I guess it could. But I was one at a red light, and how Harley sounds, that roar, that guy came beside me. I didn't hear him coming. He had a little yellow hat on, a little yellow scooter. And he goes, me. I kept laughing. boom. I like cherry red, so I figured I'd embarrass him. I just hammered it. I never saw him again. he was good natured. I think I still laugh about that today. If you want to be. Concentration now. And when I first opened that lid up, there's a lot here, right? And now, as it fills the room up, will the diffusion slow down? Well, of course it will. As the room is nearly full, it's barely diffusing. But when I first open the sucker, diffusion's fast. I mean, from here to her, she'll smell it in a faster time than from you to her. Because it's filling the room up. So when it first starts, it goes really fast. And as it fills the room up, diffusion slows down. And when the room is full, it finally stops. It ain't constant speed. It just slows down as diffusion is successful. And when there's equal amounts everywhere, diffusion stops. I'm going to make that too big. Simple diffusion. This says extracellular fluid. These say lipid soluble. If you're lipid soluble, can you or can you not just go through the membrane? You can, because the membrane's fat. If you can dissolve in fat, you get to go through. So by saying you're lipid soluble, then you get to go through. You don't need any doors. This is inside the cell. Outside the cell. So, in the case of oxygen, if there's more out here and less in here, is diffusion in or out? There's your plus, there's your minus. Which way will it go? It'll go in. Now, inside here, that cell is living and making carbon dioxide. For carbon dioxide, here's your plus, a lot, and here's your minus. Which way will it go? Diffuse toward the plus, toward the minus.
Toward the minus.
It'll go toward the minus, where there's not much of it. Now, in the case of water, can water diffuse?
Yeah.
Water's not fat soluble. It ain't going anywhere. Unless the door opens, water cannot dissolve in fat. That membrane is a great barrier to keep water out. And is there water inside here?
No.
Yes, there is water inside the cell.
Yes, there is.
And guess why it stays there? You can't go through the membrane. That's why it's trapped inside. It can't leave. Only if you're fat soluble can you just ooze on through the membrane. If you're water soluble, you ain't going to that membrane. You gotta wait for the pores open and you go through the door. And those two chemicals up there, oxygen and carbon dioxide, they're both fat soluble. They get oozed to the membrane. But water, water is hydrophilic. And if you're hydrophilic, you love water. Therefore, you must hate the fat. If you're hydrophobic, you hate water. Therefore, you love the fat. Hydro means what?
Water.
Water. Phobic means
Hate.
hate or fear. Philic means an attraction. So by knowing the hydro nature, I also know the lipid nature. So if something hates water, then guess what he loves? And he can go through it. If something loves the water, then guess what he hates? And he can't go through it. So if you're hydrophobic, you hate the water, therefore you're going to love that fat and go right on through. If you're hydrophilic, you love the water, you ain't going to like that fat. So water itself is hydrophilic. So you ain't going through. Those two up there, the oxygen and carbon dioxide, if they're going through the fat layer, are they hydrophobic or hydrophilic? Phobic. If you go through the fat layer because you don't like the water. You can't have both ways. You can't have both ways. You can't be hydrophobic and go through the fat too. Of course, the greater, the steeper the hill, the faster you go, right? The greater the gradient, the more rapid the diffusion. I mean, if you're going to, your parking lots, coming out of grocery stores have a certain grade they can't exceed. If you got a cart full of groceries and a downhill slant, you got to fight hold the sucker back. It'd be dragging you down the hill. And that's why. There's been more than one car dented by a shopping cart. Get inside your car. Some folks park it by themselves, or they park on a hillside, so the cart will not. But if you park and here's the shopping cart, and one gets away, it's gonna go down the hill and may hit your car inside. So a lot of folks don't think about that. When I park my bike, I always think about the downhill. I never park facing down, so I can't push it back up. It weighs 1,000 pounds. I'll always pull up and let it roll back by itself, and I can drive out and use the Harley power. Once you park wrong, you never do it again. You can't. It's like pushing a car. You can't do it. All right. Now, the membrane talking about here is one that is selectively permeable. It has pores in it. And the pores that some things pass through and other things can't. Maybe down at the bottom it still says lipid soluble, like alcohol. Alcohol can pass right through and destroy your liver, or make you drunk by destroying brain cells. If it's a small bit of alcohol, your brain cells can recover. If you keep doing that to them, they're going to stop recovering. And even though you're stone cold sober, you're going to look like you're drunk because they're messed up. I do want to bring that alcohol up behind the word molecule where it belongs. All right. So those things can move by simple diffusion. Nothing makes it happen. It just happens by itself. And even the water, it won't go in until the door opens. Then it goes in by itself. Then. No problem at all. Well, you recall the stuff on hypotonic and hypertonic, and how the hypo means the cell swells? But water moves based on the concentration of the stuff, not the water. And it always moves where there's more stuff. Try to spread the stuff apart. Now when water is moving, that's diffusion. We call it osmosis. There's still diffusion, but really we prefer to call it osmosis. So diffusion is a kind of, osmosis is a kind of diffusion that only sees water moving. No solid. Okay?
Hypertonic is no water, and hypo is water.
Okay, my little code word is hypo.
Mm-hmm.
If you're hypotonic, there's not much stuff in the solution. A lot more stuff in the cell. Those words refer to the solution, not the cell. So if you're hypotonic, there's not much stuff in the solution, a lot more in the cell. Now in that case, that big O, water goes where there's more stuff, less water, right? And the cell swells up. Now if you're hypertonic, there's more stuff in the solution and the cell. Now in that case, where water goes where there's not much water, which is out there in the solution, and the cell loses water and shrivels up. But both words, they're not about the cell. They're about the solution. If you keep that straight, you won't mess up. Because too many people think that the word's about the cell and they get it right backwards. That word, in my mind, hypertonic means tons of stuff in the solution. Tonic, tons. Hyper, a lot of it. So when I say to you isotonic, I'll always tell you, there's just as much stuff in the solution than the cell. The solution first. If I say hypertonic, more stuff in the solution, less stuff in the cell. And the water, there's more in the cell, right? So water goes out. and the cell shrinks up. I say hypotonic, where's all your stuff at? Because not much stuff in the solution. Now, but where's more water at? Outside there, and water diffuses into the cell and makes the cell swell up, might even pop like a bubble.
And what
That's
is
how it works.
what is isotonic?
ISO is equal to, there's not more anywhere.
Okay,
Water goes
equal.
in, water comes out, the cell doesn't change shape at all. ISO means equal. Exactly, it means equal. The cells in your body right now, if you're feeling good, are isotonic. If you get a sore throat and you gargle with water, the water is hypertonic to your sore throat cells, which are swollen. That hypertonic salt water gargle pulls water out of your cells. They lose their swelling. You ain't well, but you lose some of your discomfort from swallowing out of your throat because of my swelling. If you gargle with diffused water, with nothing in that water, what's going to happen to you? It's going to get worse. It's going to, and I guess the more salt you can sand, the better it's going to pull. I mean, if one spoonful is good, then try 2 and try 3 and try 4. It's got to be liquid, of course. But the greater the gradient, I mean, if you put 1 scoop of water in versus 4, who has a higher gradient, 1 or 4? 4 does. It's bigger difference than my throat cell. So who's going to pull more water out of my throat cell? The 4 is. Just don't swallow. And that salt's going to mess you up worse than your throat was. So spit it out. And really and truly, you should be spitting out more water you took in. Think about it. You're going to spit out more water than you took in. Because where does your water come from? Your sore throat cell. Now, whatever made them sore is still there. But you won't, maybe another hour or 2 you got to gargle again. But this you can swallow. And you can talk to people because your throat's not swollen. Yes. Oh, thank you, ma'am. You're right. Let's see. What's next? Good. We're going to stop on 12. I'll come in and show you the picture next time around. Tomorrow we're doing a lab. And then on Monday we're doing